Like I said, March 2nd, he wanted to keep her a couple of days. I had put my faith in this man. His name was Perwaiz Rahim, a pulmonary specialist, and put my faith in the man because my mother was all set to be discharged. So I said, okay. The next day, he starts overdosing her on Xanax. March 3rd. March 4th, again with the Xanax. March 5th, he starts overdosing her with Haldol. March 5th, I had to put her up into the intensive care unit. She had been hallucinating. The Haldol just sent her right over the edge. She had never taken Xanax before in her life. I've never taken a Xanax before in my life. She had never taken Haldol before in her life. And I had to put her in the intensive care unit March 5th. March 6, 2006, they told me to be prepared that my mother was dying. In the medical records, it also states they had stopped giving her her high blood pressure medication on March 3rd. And on March 6th, when I put her on the ventilator, my mother never wanted to be kept alive by artificial means. She had a DNR. And I said to the respiratory therapist, Teresa, I said, what'll happen if I don't do that? She said, well, she'll suffocate to death. So naturally, I put her on the vent. And that day, that afternoon, they always have their hands restrained as not to pull out the vent. She was pulling up in bed, still fighting for her life, and would fall back. And then pull up again with her eyes closed and just falling back. She didn't even know I was there. It was just horrible to see my mother like this. And like I said, she was all set to go home March 2nd, 2006. If I would have yanked her out of there the way I should have, my mother would still be living right now. Because a few phone calls were made, and unfortunately, Merck Pharmaceuticals and Glenn Barden and Perwaiz Rahim were all compensated to kill off my mother. Not wrongful death, I'm talking murder, America. We're talking flat-out criminal behavior, murdering a patient so they wouldn't get the settlement that is coming due to them. I'm sorry, this is just, I just can't believe this has still happened. I've been walking around with post-traumatic shock syndrome because I still can't believe that they did this to my mother over money. Everybody I've talked to says they have a horror story to tell just like mine, but they feel they have no recourse. March 7th, the next day, 2006, I was there all day with my mother, and I told her, I said, Mother, I am not ready to let you go, and I know you don't want to go yet, but I know you've been in horrific pain and have 10 years of retirement has been one medical malpractice and one legal malpractice after another, and I know you've been going through a living hell. I said, sweetheart, if you're ready, you just go with God. March 7th, I was there at the hospital in the evening at 9:30, and I went home to go and let our dogs out, and it was 10:30 here in Lakeland. I got a sick feeling in my stomach, and I called the hospital, and the nurse said, sweetheart, you need to get up here, your mother's fixing to expire, quote unquote. Now they knew at 9:30 my mother was dying. Why did they let me leave? I flew back up to the hospital at 10:35. I looked at my watch and I felt like all the life had been drained from my body. It felt like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. I get to the hospital, to her room in intensive care, and she had passed away. I said, what time did she pass? And the nurse said 10:35. And I said, I need to lay down with my mother. And the nurse looked at me really strange. I said, you don't understand. I said, I'm an only child. My mother was a single parent. We were each other's world. I said, I didn't get to say goodbye to my mother. I didn't get to kiss her goodbye. I didn't get to tell her I loved her the way I did one more time. I said, I have to lay down with my mother. And she said, sweetheart, I'm going to pull the curtain. You do what you need to do. And I still could not believe that my mother had passed away, that these people literally had murdered off my mother. They killed her right in front of my very eyes. And they did let me lay with her until about, I guess it was maybe midnight, maybe after, I can't remember, and they came in and they said, sweetheart, you know, we've got to move her. After they pass away, after they expire, there's a time limit and we need to move them. I said, I understand. Nurse comes in, she throws down the phone book down and says, what funeral home? And I was just shocked. I said, what? And she said, what funeral home? I said, I have no idea. She was all set to be discharged on March 2nd. And one intensive care nurse, Christina, did say, she said, you know, I am having a really hard time with this. I see her discharge papers right in front of me. And I said, tell me about it. She said, well, maybe she'll surprise us and she'll sit up and, you know, surprise us all. And of course, to myself, I knew that wasn't going to happen because I knew what was going on. I just want America to know, because I've talked to so many people in the past 2 years and 3 months that have the same horror stories to tell about loved ones, family members. I thought these were crimes just perpetrated on women, but it's children, it's adults, it's people. I could sit here for 24 to 48 hours and tell you people horror stories of things that have happened at Lakeland Regional, at Bartow Regional, and I don't want to go into that. But people think they have no recourse for their loved ones' misery and pain and suffering and then death. And unfortunately, I just want America to know that we as private citizens have to let our politicians know that we cannot let this kind of stuff go on anymore. Criminal activity, and they profit from them. Everybody got paid off. My mother's death by Merck Pharmaceuticals. Glenn Barden got money, Perwez Rahim got money, Bartow Regional got money. Everybody got money. Merck was handing out that money like crazy, but they didn't want to give my mother a penny because they didn't want, and also Glenn Barden didn't want his precious reputation ruined and smeared. And if he thinks that he's going to be able to hide behind the cloth of his church that he's so highly revered, I hope every single one of you people rot and burn in hell that had something to do with my mother's death. And what's going to be burning you is going to be your precious greed for money. And you will deserve rotting in hell, having your money burn you up for the rest of eternity, because you people don't need to pass over and go through the pearly gates. This is criminal behavior. Any one of us American citizens who would do this, we'd be put under the jail and the key would be thrown away. We as private citizens have to band together to take back our country, to get our government back on track, and let them know that this kind of stuff has got to stop. It's just ridiculous. It's a nightmare. It's just been one nightmare for me, my whole family. The class action suit was not pursued because Doug Bernetti, her attorney, was also paid under the table by Merck Pharmaceuticals not to go forward with the case. Morgan & Morgan, I spoke with them on the phone, an attorney's firm, and they get in touch with me after a month to say, sorry, would like to be able to help you, but we really can't. But we urge you to seek further legal counsel because attorneys' opinions differ. And if you do hire legal counsel, have them get in touch with us for more personal information, which means they got paid off under the table again, not to handle the case. In America, we can't stand for this anymore. It's just ridiculous. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for your time. I've made it short and sweet. I have all the proof right here in her medical records. It took the doctor 9 days to sign off on her death certificate before we could even have her cremated. It takes 48 hours you have to wait prior to cremation. It took 9 days to sign off on a death certificate. What's wrong with that picture, America? You tell me and we'll both know. Once again, my mother was Floriana Antoinette Sabina Feliciani Levine, and my name is Michelle Levine. I want to thank you all.